Welcome to Good Questions. Today's subject is Psalm 10, King James Version. Why standest thou afar off, O Lord? Why hidest thou thyself in times of trouble? Pause. Is God truly far away? Why is the image of standing used? Does God ever not stand? Does God hide in times of trouble? What are the circumstances of the author? Verse 2. The wicked in his pride doth persecute the poor. Let them be taken in the devices that they have imagined. Pause. What qualifies or characterizes the wicked? Why is pride viewed as a negative attribute? Why is the word for poor used where it would have been more mirroring to use the word for righteous? What are the devices of the wicked? Why is the imagination mentioned first or at the end, but as a precursor to the devices? What controls the imagination? Verse 3. For the wicked boasteth of his heart's desire, and blesseth the covetous, whom the Lord abhorreth. Pause. Let's read that again. Verse 3. For the wicked boasteth of his heart's desire, and blesseth the covetous, whom the Lord abhorreth. Pause. What characterizes subconscious speech? When do we know that someone is boasting? Is boasting the same as bragging? Is covetousness the same as greed? Does the word abhor imply going away because of the prefix in the English ab, ab? Verse 4. The wicked, through the pride of his countenance, will not seek after God. God is not in all his thoughts. Pause. Does countenance imply facial muscle tone? What is the look of a proud countenance? Is this also a secondary or ternary reference to Cain, when in the King James Version, God asks Cain, why is thy countenance downcast? Are we supposed to look upward with our face in order to stay connected to God? How does the author know that God is not in the thoughts of the wicked? What then is the distinction between a good person who does not consider God and a good person who does consider God? Verse 5. His ways are always grievous. Thy judgments are far above, out of his sight. As for all his enemies, he puffeth them at them. Let me read that again. Verse 5. His ways are always grievous. Thy judgments are far above, out of his sight. As for all his enemies, he puffeth at them. Pause. Is this a rapid changing of perspective? Verse 6. He hath said in his heart, I shall not be moved, for I shall never be in adversity. Pause. What is the nature of adversity? Where is the heart, and how is it related to the place of speaking internally? How do we affect the heart to soften it? Who is without adversity? Verse 7. His mouth is full of cursing and deceit and fraud. Under his tongue is mischief and vanity. Pause. Why is an image of mischief and vanity being, quote, under the tongue, parallel the idea or the image of sweeping dust under a rug rather than removing it? Cursing and deceit and fraud. Does the wicked lie to others first or to himself first? Verse 8. He sitteth in the lurking places of the villages. In the secret places doth he murder the innocent. His eyes are privily set against the poor. Pause. If the poor have not much to steal, why does the wicked set his eyes against them? If the murder of the innocent is done in secret places, who then will believe what happened when told? Where are the lurking places of the villages? Why is he pictured as sitting when in verse 1, about halfway through the psalm, comparatively, because God is mentioned in verse 1 as standing, and the wicked now in verse 8 is mentioned as sitting at roughly the halfway point of the psalm? Is there a pattern here? Verse 9. He lieth in wait secretly as a lion in his den. He lieth in wait to catch the poor. He doth catch the poor when he draweth him into his net. Pause. Now we see lying down secretly. We see imagery of a lion and are implied the image of the poor as being also similar to a fish, and the wicked as the unmentioned fisherman that has presumably the net. And the poor is, of course, mentioned as opposing to the wicked. So then, is the wicked rich, or is the wicked also poor? Verse 10. He croucheth and humbleth himself, that the poor may fall by his strong ones. Pause. What kind of humility is implied here? Are there two distinct understandings of the term humility? What are the strong ones of the wicked that overcome the poor? Verse 11. He hath said in his heart, God hath forgotten. He hideth his face, he will never see it. Pause. How does the author, who presumably believes himself to be righteous, how does the author know that the wicked hath said in his heart that God hath forgotten? What hath God forgotten? In what way would God hide his face? And how will God never see in the future? Why is both past, forgotten, current, present tense, hideth, and future will never see? Why are all tenses of the verbs included? Verse 12. Arise, O Lord, O God, lift up thine hand. Forget not the humble. Pause. In what sense is the word humble used in contrast to two verses prior, and when it was referencing the wicked? Verse 13. Wherefore doth the wicked condemn God? He hath said in his heart, Thou wilt not require it. Pause. When the author says, quote, Thou wilt not require it, does that indicate that God demands a price to be paid for actions done, such as for the wicked overcoming and presumably devouring the poor? In what way does the author presume that the wicked condemns God? If I blame God for the events of my life, what separates me from the wicked then? Verse 14. Thou hast seen it, for thou beholdest mischief and spite, to requite it with thy hand. The poor committeth himself unto thee. Thou art the helper of the fatherless. Pause. In the past tense, the author indicates that God has seen the wickedness. In the present tense, he beholds mischief and spite. The word require is used in an infinitive sense in the English, to requite, and the image of the hand is used to require it by hand. We see the image of the helper of the fatherless, and the fatherless presumably being the poor in this sense. Verse 15. Break thou the arm of the wicked and the evil man. Seek out his wickedness till thou find none. Pause. If God is interested in breaking the power, and presumably that is the personification used when it references the arm of the wicked and the evil. If God is interested in this endeavor, why does he wait? And at what point in time would ever there be found no wickedness or evil? Is there a distinction between wickedness and evil? Verse 16. The Lord is king forever and ever. The heathen are perished out of his land. Pause. What word is used in what context when it uses the word heathen and perish? Which land is this indicating? Verse 17. Lord, thou hast heard the desire of the humble. Thou wilt prepare their heart. Thou wilt cause thine ear to hear. Let's read that again. Lord, thou hast heard the desire of the humble. Thou wilt prepare their heart. Thou wilt cause thine ear to hear. Pause. For whatever reason, that particular phrase in the English is difficult for me to articulate. Thou wilt cause thine ear to hear. It's almost like a tongue twister to me. But again, we see the concept of humility, and it indicates that God has already heard what they want. Verse 18. To judge the fatherless and the oppressed, that the man of the earth may no more oppress. Pause. Are the weak and the poor limited to the fatherless and the oppressed? Who is this man of the earth, and why is he called the oppressor? Is this a type of man, or is this a specific man? Is this also in reference to Cain and Abel? And when will these things take place? What are your good questions? Share your thoughts. Feel free to like and subscribe. Have a great day.